So I wanted to share something here that I've come to understand over time and about myself. And I was talking with someone today, and I've heard a couple different scenarios that come up where that have to do with our value system. And I posted something about white supremacy delusion values and the cultural values of that system of harm. And I think it's really important that we are for me, I think of it as values that I want to embody versus values I don't want to embody. And I do the same with goals and other things. And so I just want to share here, I've worked with kids, young people, students, parents, myself, about understanding the values that I've internalized and the values that I don't want and the values that I do want. And that's a system that I've kind of always been working with my whole life. And so I just wanted to share some observations that I've had recently and some things that I've come. So I'm going to try to keep this as short and succinct as possible while still getting into the nitty-gritty details of things. But essentially, I've come to understand that we as humans, we value certain things, and we can to tell ourselves stories about how we don't value those things or how we don't need those things, and we try to then separate ourselves from those values. But we we all value love and connection. We all value a certain degree of certainty, a certain degree of variety, and there's been research that's been done that these are things that we value. We value them at different levels. We may not, we can settle for not actually going for love and just settle for connection. It's not quite as fulfilling, research says that. And so anyways, we have these things that we value, inherently value, but then if we deal with traumatic experiences that are coupled, which is just an overload of stress on our system, so toxic stress build up in our system, and then we get these programmings that we grow up with if we experience. So then that's if we're experiencing trauma, especially during our developmental years, which can be up till 21, 25 maybe. And basically then when we're in survival mode especially, but a lot of times whenever we're just comfortable, whenever I guess both of those scenarios, basically then humans can become where we prioritize increasing our comfort and minimizing our expending our energy and seeking out pleasure and avoiding pain. Seeking out pleasure, avoiding pain, and reducing our energy expenditure, that becomes the main things that then we basically place over this false value system of those things being the things we value, when in reality what we actually value are these deep things. Those are the things that are actually going to give us energy. So then therein lies this trap. So then what happens is we are basically putting all of our attention onto doing things that leads to us embodying these values of increasing our comfort or increasing pleasure, reducing pain, and avoiding expending energy unnecessarily. And all of those things are actually really antithetical to us meeting the core needs that we have, the universal, the values that we actually have for love and connection, for certainty, for variety, for to be able to contribute, to be able to be significant, and things like that we all really value. So then we end up kind of meeting those needs on a really base level. And I think a lot of times that's whenever we see that people are dealing with a lot of depression and lack of motivation and things like that, is that we aren't digging deep into meeting these core values that we actually have and we really want. We've replaced it with this really so unfortunately that also means that we can't save people from the outside. That's something that has to be, at least that has to be begun from the inside of each person, is to lead ourselves out and through that darkness and that dealing with, for me it was avoidance. Everything felt intrusive, every bit of extra love and extra care from people that I had deemed as unsafe to connect with, which for me that was very different. That was people in my family who were not unsafe to connect with, they were just unreliable, and they were unsafe for me to connect with when I was a kid, whenever all that trauma first happened. But they're not necessarily unsafe because I'm an adult and I rule how my emotions work, and I don't have to put so much attention on those things. And that took me a long time to be able to get to that place, to be able to do that. So I'm not saying that's something that happens overnight, and just because we understand it intellectually does not mean that our body understands it. And that's the thing, is it just takes time. Also, with anything like this, it's nuanced. It's not so simple. It's not as simple as being able to regulate our emotions. That's not the way to get out of survival mode or to not experience trauma anymore. And it's not necessarily as simple as just like running at our triggers. I've heard people who are kind of, there's like this culture of obsession with growth and consistent progression in the wellness industry that's kind of like popular right now. And so I think there's like a lot of pressure to like just run at all of your triggers and just like take care of everything right away. That's not necessarily what's going to work for everybody, and it's not that simple. It's just a process. It's a process that takes time, and there is no like end goal of but there's just like looking at what you want your life to look like and knowing that your life can look like the people that you look up to, that you maybe even feel a little jealous of the way that they're able to regulate their emotions. You can embody it that much and that well too. And that's just one part of the puzzle.